the way that a tree has many different elements and yet creates a unity. A tree has a trunk, it has branches, leaves, flowers, roots. Each of those is entirely different and has a different function. But as a totality, they create a unified organic tree. And in the same way, that's how organic architects, following the philosophy of Frank Lloyd Wright, thought of the structure and the space of this house. I'm Alan Hess. I'm an architect and historian, and I'm sitting here in the Anderson House in Palos Verdes, California, which was built in 1959 by the architect Aaron Green. Aaron Green was born in Alabama, grew up there, became interested in architecture. Aaron Green studied with Frank Lloyd Wright. Interestingly also, Aaron Green was among the many, many very talented apprentices that went through Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin experience. But Aaron Green was the only one that Frank Lloyd Wright chose to actually officially become an associate architect with him. In the 1950s, they actually opened a joint office in San Francisco, which was where Aaron Green was located at that time. So that just shows you exactly how respected Aaron Green was by Frank Lloyd Wright, who did not give out compliments to anyone very often. In his career, Aaron Green really was associated with Northern California, the San Francisco Bay Area. But in fact, he had a very substantial career here in Southern California, where we are now as well, after World War II. It's not very well known. There was such an explosion of talent in Southern California after World War II. Of course, the place was booming, people were moving in, there was a lot of money, prosperity had returned, people were wanting to build houses as well as other buildings. Southern California was one of the hotbeds of modern architecture, progressive modern architecture at that time. So it's interesting, Aaron Green, I don't want to say he was lost in that, but in terms of who was paying attention and what the critics and historians have looked back to report on, Aaron Green was kind of left out of the story. But in fact, he did a lot here in Southern California, like this house. This house has several of the kind of key elements, the vocabulary that Aaron Green used in a number of his houses. And while it does relate to Wright's philosophy, it's unmistakably not a Frank Lloyd Wright design. Aaron Green was not imitating Frank Lloyd Wright's vocabulary. He was taking these basic principles, one, connecting to nature, two, using natural materials, three, connecting the indoors with the outdoors. This house is combined. The spaces flow from entryway to the living room to dining room, outside to the patio, which was also a living space, a really viable living space intended for the comfort and delight of the customers. But then you see this through a number of different elements. For example, these concrete floors with pebbles, gravel embedded in it, but exposed. So you have this rough, natural texture to it. Well, that's what would have been used in an outdoor patio, but Green brings it inside as well. So actually, almost wherever you are in the house, you feel like you're outside. What should we call this style of architecture? Well, first of all, the term style was anathema to Frank Lloyd Wright. A style to him implied something applied to the building after it's done. So you want a Gothic building, you add Gothic ornament, or you want a classical building, so you have classical ornament. That was what style was. That said, there is a commonality about modern architecture, especially in the United States and here in Southern California at this time. This is modern architecture. I would call it organic modern architecture. Organic in the sense that it is rooted conceptually in nature, but also the way the spaces flow together, that's organic. He's not dividing the living room from the bedrooms, from the kitchen, etc. He's saying life is being lived as a totality, a unity. And so the spaces of that life, whether you're sitting by the fireplace on a cold night or you're cooking dinner for guests or just sitting quietly in a chair and enjoying the beautiful space. Why was this site chosen is a really good question. But you look out at the view and it's kind of easy to find out, why. The views bring in the sense of nature, not only the landforms and the ocean, but the weather, the clouds, the climate as it changes through the years and through the day and so forth. All of these elements were significant in how Aaron Green or other Frank Lloyd Wright students thought about their design. They integrated all of those natural elements into their work. Wright, in his philosophy, and this house is an excellent example of that philosophy, was about how to combine modern technology and human living, but with nature also. So it makes perfect sense for Green to love and design for a site like this, which allows nature to become part of the house. And in just about every detail of this house, you see that touchstone of nature, natural materials, stone, wood, so forth, in the design of the house. A few years ago, the Palos Verdes Art Center, right near here, asked me to do an exhibit on Aaron Green, which I was pleased to do. I don't think there had been an exhibit specifically on his work before, and he was so important. And he was active here in Southern California, which people needed to know. So I was real pleased that this, it's a small art center, but it took on this job of presenting new material about an important architect like Aaron Green, unlike some of the larger cultural institutions, unfortunately. They should be doing this job because this is beautiful architecture. This is important architecture. It's part of Southern California's heritage and character as well. And this house has been so well maintained and preserved over the years. What you see here is Aaron Green's concept of space, structure, site, nature, all of those things. It's just an extraordinary artifact to come upon, but well worth a visit to understand not only Green, but also this important part of Southern California architecture.